The ice under Europa's surface groaned like a living thing. Deep below the frozen crust, machines hummed quietly, their lights casting long shadows in the dark tunnel. A group of scientists and explorers stood silently, their suits glowing dimly, under the soft lights. This was not just any ice cavern. This was a dig site that had taken 3 years to reach, and now something strange had been found. Rachel Morrison stared at the strange shape buried in the ice. Her breath fogged up her visor even though she tried to stay calm. "That doesn't look like rock," she said quietly over the comms. Ethan Brooks, standing beside her, leaned closer. He held a scanner in one hand and wiped ice crystals off the surface. "Metal," he said, blinking at the readout. "It's metal, and it goes deep." Rachel stepped back, her boots crunching on the ice. "How deep? I don't know," Ethan said. "Deeper than anything we've found on Europa. This thing, it's big. Bigger than any ship we've ever built." Rachel looked around at the rest of the crew. Some were already placing drilling tools, others shining lights into the dark corners of the cavern. She took a breath and tapped her comms. "Begin excavation." Carefully, hours turned into days. The crew worked in shifts, digging, scanning, cutting through thick layers of ice. Every meter they uncovered showed more of the strange object. It had sharp lines, smooth edges, and long wings that looked like blades. Strange symbols ran across the hull, unlike any modern language. It looked like a ship, but not one they had ever seen. One night, as the lights flickered and the cavern filled with fog from the heat of the machines, Ethan found a door. "Rachel," he called, his voice trembling slightly, "I think I found an entrance." Rachel came over quickly. The door was barely visible, covered in frost and sealed tight. A round symbol was carved into the metal circle with 2 wings and a flame. Rachel touched it with her gloved hand. It felt warm. "That's impossible," Ethan whispered. Rachel turned to him. "Bring the cutting tools." It took another full day to open the door. When it finally gave way, a rush of cold air escaped from within, followed by a strange humming sound. Lights flickered on inside, one by one, as if the ship was waking up. Rachel stepped inside first, her flashlight cutting through the dust. The corridor was wide, built for something large. Pipes ran along, the ceiling and panels lined the walls. It felt both ancient and alive. "Look at this," Ethan said behind her. He pointed to a wall where symbols glowed faintly. He ran his scanner over them. "These are human characters, old ones, maybe predigital age." Rachel frowned. "That doesn't make sense. How could a human ship this advanced end up here, frozen in Europa, and no one knew about it?" They walked deeper into the ship, moving slowly. Each room revealed more strange technology chairs molded into the floor, control panels with no buttons, and a central chamber with a massive sphere floating in the air. The sphere pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "This thing has power," Ethan said, stepping closer, "and it's waiting for something." Rachel turned in a slow circle, staring at the chamber. "What is this place? Who built it?" Ethan reached out and touched the sphere. It glowed brighter, and a voice echoed in the chamber. A calm female voice spoke in perfect English. "Designation: Vigilant Storm. Earth Defense Platform. Status: Stand by. Awaiting command authorization." Rachel's mouth dropped open. "Did it just say Earth?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes, and it called itself a defense platform." They stood in silence. For a moment, then Rachel tapped her comms. "Command, this is Morrison. We have found a ship. It claims to be from Earth. Repeat, it is human, and it's waiting for orders." Back at base, her message caused chaos. Scientists, military leaders, and even the president herself were notified. But Rachel and her crew weren't done yet. They spent the next week exploring the ship. The systems were half sleeping, but slowly waking. The AI's name was Celeste. She answered their questions, though many answers were vague. "How old are you?" Ethan asked once. "My activation records date back over 100,000 Earth years," Celeste replied calmly. "That's not possible," Rachel whispered, but the ship's logs showed missions, battles, and names of stars no human had ever recorded. Celeste explained that Earth had once been a hub of a great human empire, one that reached far beyond the stars. But something had happened. The fleet had been hidden, its memory erased. Earth was left behind, It's people starting over. Rachel stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Then why now? Why wake up? Because the stars are stirring again, Celeste said, and danger is returning. Rachel and Ethan stood in silence, the weight of the truth crashing down on them. Humanity was not as young as it thought, and something was coming. The vigilant storm floated in silence above Europa, its shadow stretching across the ice like the hand of a forgotten god. Inside the ship, quiet systems hummed with growing life. On the bridge, Rachel Morrison stood alone, staring at the stars through a darkened window. They looked different now, brighter, older. It had been a week since the ship identified itself. Since the AI called Celeste said the words, Earth Defense Platform. Since they learned humanity had a past far more advanced than anything in their present. Now, back on Earth, everything had changed. The president, Linda Moore, sat in the underground Situation Room in D.C., her fingers tapping the edge of the table. A large screen showed a live feed from the vigilant storm. Scientists, military officials, and intelligence leaders watched in silence. "Are we sure this is real?" one of the generals asked. Diana Cruz, a young AI linguist from Houston, nodded. She had spent days reviewing the logs and data. "It's real. The ship is older than any civilization we know. The language is ancient, but its roots match early human dialects. It's human, no doubt." President Moore leaned forward. "And we can control it." Diana shook her head. "No, it responds only to commands with old clearance codes, codes we don't have yet." Marcus Hill, a senior engineer from Colorado, cleared his throat. "But we can restore it. The systems are complex but familiar in some strange way, like we're remembering instead of learning." The room fell silent again. "Begin a covert restoration," Moore said. "No media, no leaks. We don't know what this means yet." Back on the vigilant storm, Rachel watched as power returned to the ship room by room. Lights turned on like old memories. She walked with Ethan Brooks, who was studying a control panel glowing softly under his fingers. "The core reactor," Ethan said. "It's fusion, but not like ours. More efficient, cleaner. We couldn't build this today if we tried." Celeste's voice echoed softly. "Restoration progress, 15%. Do you wish to accelerate core ignition?" Rachel looked at Ethan. He nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. The ship shuddered. Deep in its heart, the fusion core came alive, a soft blue light running through veins of metal like blood through arteries. Systems lit up across the vessel, doors unlocked, shields activated, engines hummed. Then, without warning, something else happened. A signal pulsed out from the vigilant storm, a beacon of light and data that shot across the stars. It was old code, wrapped in ancient encryption. Celeste didn't stop it. She had no reason to, far away, beyond the edge of human space. Others were listening. In the Valari Ascendancy, a massive space station floated above a red gas giant. Inside, tall beings with crystal blue skin and glowing eyes watched the data stream pour into their systems. "It's an Earth signal," one said. "Old one, we thought extinct. They were buried," another said. "Burned out. We made sure of it." The leader of the chamber turned slowly. His voice was sharp and cold. "Then we failed. Dispatch a scout fleet. Find the source. If they wake, we destroy them again." Back on Earth, analysts picked up strange fragments of alien transmissions. Most were broken, scattered echoes of unknown languages. But one message came through clearly, translated by Diana's software. "Earth lights return. Shut them down." Diana stared at the words in disbelief. They know. Someone out there knows what we just woke up. Rachel, now acting as field commander, called for a full lockdown on the vigilant storm. But it was too late to hide. The stars had already heard. Celeste spoke again. "Incoming signal match. Type 7. Threat class. Probability of hostile contact." "Hi." Rachel looked at Ethan. "Get the ship ready. All of it. We might not have time to finish slowly." Ethan swallowed hard. Understood. The fusion core burned brighter. Deep chambers unlocked. Weapon systems that hadn't been touched in 100,000 years came online. The vigilant storm began to breathe again, and in the dark between stars, something old began to stir. The stars were quiet, but not empty. In the deep corners of space, past the edge of every chart, there were worlds no one had spoken of in 1,000 generations. On one of those worlds, the sky turned gold as a forgotten machine lit up for the first time in ages. It was a watchtower, buried in black rock, hidden beneath purple sand. It blinked once, then again, and sent a signal into space. A name, lost in unspoken Earth. On board the Vigilant Storm, Rachel Morrison sat in the command chair, her hands resting lightly on the worn armrests. Celeste's voice came through. Again, signal confirmation. Origin, lost colony designate Theta 7. Response pattern matches pre-fall Earth protocols. Ethan Brooks looked up from the navigation table. A lost colony? That can't be right. We didn't know about any colonies that far out. We didn't, Rachel said. But the people who built this ship did. Across Earth, the story of the Vigilant Storm spread in secret corridors, though the public remained unaware. Agents, Black Ops units, and hidden governments now raced to understand how deep the ancient human reach had gone. Files long thought to be myths were pulled from dusty archives, and the signals kept coming. On a forest planet with red trees and blue rivers, another signal pulsed, then another on a storm-covered world orbiting two suns. They all said the same thing, Vigilant Storm. The flame still burns. Rachel paced the bridge, trying to understand the scope of it. How many colonies were there? Celeste answered, her voice calm. Estimated colonies pre-fall. 96 confirmed, 172. Unconfirmed. Current signal returns, 12 active, more waking. Ethan let out a low whistle. So we weren't just alone, we were abandoned. But the reactivation of the ancient fleet had not gone unnoticed. The Valari Ascendancy, proud rulers of half a galaxy, now saw old Earth signals rising like smoke. Their spies picked up news of ships waking. Warships on a Valari dreadfort near the gas ring of Eulo Prime. High strategist Salanvor stood before a map filled with flashing lights. How many? He demanded. His second-in-command, a shorter Valari, with gray tendrils along his neck, bowed 12 ships known human warships. They appear, unbroken. Salanvor's voice hissed. Then history lied to us. Earth was not destroyed. It was reset. He slammed a fist onto the console. Send the Judgment Fleet. Full strength. If they rise again, we burn them before they remember who they were. On Earth, Diana Cruz worked tirelessly, decoding old logs from the Vigilant Storm. Her fingers moved fast across the tablet screen. She looked at Marcus Hill and whispered, they weren't just ships. They were guardians, sentinels. The Ghost Fleet wasn't lost. It was hidden. Marcus blinked. To protect what? Maybe us, she said. Maybe something worse. Rachel stood before a large screen showing a new incoming signal, this one stronger, brighter. Celeste's voice became sharper. New contact, colony Arcship, returning. Identity, Horizon's reach, command structure intact, crew status, alert. Rachel's eyes widened. They're not just sending messages, they're coming back. A few days later, a bright streak cut across. Saturn's rings. A ship shaped like a blade appeared, smooth and silent. It slowed as it neared Europa. This is Commander Aiden Cole of the Horizon's Reach. A voice came through. It was human, calm. Strong Rachel stared at the screen. Welcome back. Where have you been? There was a pause. Waiting, Aiden said, waiting for the flame to rise again. And all across space, the stars began to whisper. Under the crimson clouds of Mars, the sand shifted. Not from wind, not from storms, from something beneath. Machines, buried for centuries, began to stir. Panels blinked in long-forgotten codes. A voice whispered in the dark. Unit Novafang online. Systems awakening. Rachel Morrison stood on the edge of a dig site, staring at a hollow that had once been just rock and dust. Now, it was a hangar, and inside it, a ship with a long, angular body shaped like a bird of prey. Its wings were folded tight, as if it had been sleeping. Its name was carved into the hull in simple Old Earth script. Novafang. Beside her, Ethan Brooks adjusted his helmet. That makes, for now, one on Titan, one beneath Earth's ocean, one near Neptune, and now this. All hidden, all waiting. Rachel nodded. And they all share the same design language, same core power signature, same voice. Celeste, the AI of the Vigilant Storm, had begun linking herself to each new discovery. And each ship had its own AI, its own name, its own memory. Argent Edge was sleek and silent, with a body like a silver dagger. Silent Hunter was long and thin, its surface black as the void, capable of disappearing from every scanner. Dawn Piercer had wings shaped like a spearhead, its engine core built for charging, not retreating. The Ghost Fleet had names, and now it had a voice. President Moore watched the reports from her underground command center. "These ships," she whispered, "they weren't just tools, they were planted, as if we were supposed to find them one day." Diana Cruz stood beside her, her tablet glowing. "I think that day is now." Somewhere past the orbit of Pluto, the Valari scout fleet entered the system. The lead ship, a red and gold crescent, hovered in the dark. "Confirm coordinates," the captain hissed. "Target, Earth-class signals, high energy, old code." One of the Valari looked at the readings. His skin paled. "There are 9 of them, all awake, all ... humming." The scout captain narrowed his eyes. "Send a message to the Ascendancy, and prepare weapons." Back on Mars, the Nova Fang roared to life. Its engines didn't just burn, they shimmered with color that bent space. It rose from the dust in a straight line, smooth and terrifying. Ethan stepped back as the ground shook. "I think it's asking for orders." Rachel raised her voice. "Celeste, link command protocol to Nova Fang. Deploy it to Europa. Defense formation." Celeste replied calm as ever. "Protocol confirmed." Ghost Unit Nova Fang, entering orbit. The Ghost Fleet rose, one ship after another. Some came from the depths of ice, some from under the seas. Some just appeared, shimmering into existence as if space had hidden them humans. Watched from Earth with awe, none of their ships could fly like these, none could fire weapons like these. The Ghost Fleet didn't just move, it danced, and then the Valari made their first mistake. A warning shot from one of their cruisers crossed Europa's orbit, aimed not at Earth, but at the vigilant storm. It skimmed the outer shields. No damage, but it was enough. Celeste responded without emotion, engaging defensive measures. The vigilant storm fired a single pulse from its forward cannon, a ripple of blue light. Silent, fast. The Valari cruiser was gone, not destroyed, removed, as if it had never existed. Rachel stared at the screen, her heart pounding. "What was that?" Celeste replied. "Mass disassembly weapon. Target resolved. Probability of return, 0. The rest of the Valari fleet turned, but the Ghost Fleet was already moving. Argent Edge leaped forward, its hull slicing space like water. Dawn Piercer followed, its engines flaring. Silent Hunter blinked out of sight and across the solar system. The old ships took their places again. Not for conquest, not for show, for defense. The stars watched in silence. The space between Earth and the outer planets had never been this quiet. It was a waiting silence, thick and uneasy. The kind of silence that comes just before a storm. At the edge of the system, the Valari Judgment Fleet arrived in full. Dozens of ships stretched across the stars, sharp and cold, their silver hulls glowing faintly in the dark. Their largest vessel, the Blade of Purity, led the way. Inside, Admiral Voss stood tall before a glowing display. "Human signals confirmed. Ghost. Units active. Ancient class," a technician said. Voss narrowed his eyes. "Prepare the message. It ends now." Aboard the Vigilant Storm, Rachel Morrison stood on the command deck, watching the feed from Saturn's orbit. The enemy ships had stopped. They had not fired again. Yet Celeste spoke. "Incoming signal. Translation complete. Displaying now." On the screen, Valari glyphs shifted into plain words to the inheritors of old Earth. "You walk again with fire in your hands. Surrender the ancient weapons, or be burned with them." Rachel looked at Ethan Brooks. "Not much room for peace in that," he nodded. "No, but we still have to try." They opened a channel. The face of Admiral Voss appeared, pale and rigid. Rachel spoke first. "We don't seek war. We didn't even know. These ships existed until they woke themselves." "We are not your enemy," Voss responded slowly. "That may be true, but those ships were never meant to rise again, not without price. They are older than your world remembers. They carry echoes of a war that tore galaxies apart." Ethan stepped forward. Then help us understand them? We don't even know who built them. Voss shook his head. You were not supposed to remember, yet you do. The fire should have stayed buried. He ended the transmission. Seconds later, the blade of purity fired a beam across space, white-hot and precise. It hit Vigilant Storm directly. The ship shuddered. Alarms flashed. But when the light faded, the old warship still stood. Its shields hadn't even flickered. Celeste's voice echoed calmly. Impact absorbed. Counter-response available. Rachel hesitated. But then Nova Fang and Don Piercer moved into defensive formation, wings glowing. The Valari ships began to spread, preparing for assault. Rachel breathed in. Do not fire first, but if they attack again, protect this system. Across the Ghost Fleet, old AI voices came alive. Argent Edge, shield protocol ready. Silent Hunter. Stealth frame online. Vigilant Storm, designation. Defender of Origin. All systems engaged. Then, in a soft voice, Celeste added, They believe we are relics. Let them learn we are warnings. The sky above Neptune lit up with the first battle in 100,000 years. The first blast came without light. It was soundless, deadly, a ripple across space that bent time and bent rules. The Valari fleet opened fire, not with one weapon, but with many beam cannons, magnetic lances, particle torches, all aimed at Earth's defenders. It was not a warning. It was a purge. But the Ghost Fleet did not run. Nova Fang flew like a shadow cut loose from the dark. It spun, dipped, and tore through space with wings that changed shape mid-flight. It struck a Valari cruiser from below, slicing it in half with a silent beam of curved light. Above Mars, Argent Edge moved with cold grace. Its body shimmered with light-bending armor, making it appear and vanish in the same breath. It didn't dodge shots. They passed through where it used to be. Its return fire was thin and sharp, like needles of starlight. 3 Valari ships broke apart before they even knew it was there. And then came dawn. Persetit emerged from Europa's orbit like a thunderclap, launching forward with engines that carved glowing scars in space. It charged directly into the heart of the Valari formation, ramming through 2 ships in a burst of blue kinetic energy. Its weapon was not finesse, it was momentum. The Valari were not prepared. Their ships, though advanced, were made for control. For dominance, they were not made for fear. And the Ghost Fleet, the ancient ships, they fought with something more than programming. They fought with memory. On the Vigilant Storm, Rachel gripped the edge of the command platform. How are we doing? She asked. Celeste responded calmly. Enemy losses at 42%. No major Ghost Fleet damage recorded. Ethan Brooks stared at the screen, mouth open. We're winning. Rachel shook her head. No, we're surviving. For now, but as the battle raged, another voice joined the chorus. From the edge of the solar system, a new ship arrived. It did not look like the others. It was old, even by Ghost Fleet standards. Its body was cracked, its lights dim. But it moved like a legend. Unknown unit entering zone, Celeste announced. Identity confirmed, Silent Hunter. It appeared in flashes, first near Pluto, then near a Valari ship, then gone again. When it struck, it did not use weapons. It used silence. One Valari vessel shut down entirely. No explosion, no flash, just empty space where a ship used to be. Then another, and another. The Valari began to retreat. Admiral Voss watched from his flagship, jaw tight. These are not weapons, he said. They are warnings we refused to hear. Still, he did not give the order to retreat. Instead, he whispered, Send the command to the inner ring. Bring the core flame. If they wish to fight like the old war, then let them face its fire. On Earth, President Moore stood before a wall of screens, flames, wreckage, and then a map showing the Valari pulling back, regrouping, preparing something. We've stirred something ancient, she said quietly. Diana Cruz looked up from her desk. They're scared, but they're also remembering like we are. Rachel heard the same words from Celeste aboard the Vigilant Storm. Memory, the AI said, is not a weakness, it is a weapon. And far beyond the orbit of Neptune, something else stirred. Not Valari, not human, something older, something waking. The stars were quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the breath between questions. Above Earth, the Ghost Fleet floated like ancient statues reborn, shining against the black. Their weapons cooled, their hulls still smoked, but they waited. Morrison stood in the heart of vigilant storm, her fingers tracing the edges of a control panel that pulsed gently beneath her hand. Celeste's voice whispered through the ship. "The Valari are regrouping. We will not have long." Rachel turned to Diana Cruz, who had come aboard with new data. Her eyes were wide, voice low. "It's not just about defense," Diana said. "These ships, they weren't made to protect Earth from aliens. They were made to protect everything from something else, something older." Ethan Brooks looked up from the sensor logs. "What do you mean?" Diana pulled up a hologram. It showed layers of code, old languages hidden in the ship's systems, embedded memories. Each ship had a shard of a larger message. They remember more than battles. They remember warnings, a galactic threat, something not listed in any record, something that terrified our ancestors so badly they buried their own weapons and erased their past. Rachel stared at the glowing lines. So Earth wasn't abandoned, it was hidden. Celeste spoke again. Designation, Cradle Protocol. Humanity was placed on Earth for safety. Memories restricted, defense systems sealed. It hit them like gravity. They weren't the first humans. They were the last attempt. On the far edge of Valari space, a rebel outpost intercepted a scrambled transmission. Not from Earth, not from the Valari, from something deeper. Awakening detected. Memory fragments surfacing. Inhibitor net weakening. The Valari tried to trace it. They failed. Back on Earth, President Moore called a meeting of leaders from several alien races long oppressed by Valari rule. Some came in person, others by hologram. Most were silent. Some angry, Moore stood before them. "We never claimed to be better. We didn't know who we were. But now we do. And if what these ships are saying is true, then the real danger hasn't come yet." She paused. "We want an alliance. Not to conquer, to prepare." A tall ambassador from the Mayari leaned forward. "And if you fall back into the empire you once were, if you become what you were trying to escape," Rachel, joining via link, answered, "then hold us accountable. But don't face what's coming alone." Silence. Then, one by one, the alien factions agreed. The Valari saw the alliances forming. They tightened their grip, but it was too late. The stars had begun to shift. The Ghost Fleet activated their final memory cores. From deep in their minds, images formed. Dark giants, broken suns, living machines older than galaxies, a force not of war, but of silence, a hunger that consumes thought, light, and memory. Its extinction. And far beyond the map, something vast opened one eye. They came at dawn over Neptune. The Valari brought everything. Their largest weapon, the core flame, emerged from fold space like a black sun. It pulsed once, and light vanished. From the system, stars blinked. Silence deepened. Across the solar system, even the Ghost Fleet paused. Inside the vigilant storm, Rachel Morrison stood still. The screen showed the weapon's size half a moon, alive with gravity fields and plasma rings. It didn't fire yet. It waited, like it wanted them to see it. Celeste whispered, "The core flame was built to end civilizations. It will not fire. Once, it will burn until nothing speaks." Ethan Brooks clenched his jaw. "Then we end it first." Rachel didn't speak. She was listening. The ships were speaking. Not in words, in pulses, in shared code. A network of memory. Waking faster now. Images. Of lost builders, ancient stars, and final choices. One word echoed through them all, Ascension. Diana Cruz, watching from Earth, sent the final authorization. The codes matched. The Ghost Fleet's last protocol unlocked. Ascension protocol engaged, Celeste announced. Mission, preserve origin, prevent return of the silence. Light surged across the ancient warships. Panels opened, shapes unfolded, not just weapons, but archives, dataspheres, biological libraries, and starforging blueprints. The Ghost Fleet had been guardians of life, not only warriors. The ships moved. Argent Edge flew faster than thought. It pierced through the Valari front lines like a beam of light freed from time. Nova Fang circled the core flame, drawing fire, redirecting energy. Its hull cracked, but it stayed fast. It would not fall until its purpose was complete. Dawn Piercer rammed through the core flame's outer shell. The impact didn't destroy it, but it opened it. and vigilant, storm-old, scarred, noble entered. The core flame itself, Rachel stood in the center, heart steady. She gave no speeches. She gave one command. Now the memory cores released a final signal spread, not as a weapon, but as truth. It reached every Valari ship, every allied species, every corner of the dark. Images flooded their minds. Humans, once, rose not to rule, but to shield. The Ghost Fleet was not built to fight wars of conquest. It was created to stand between life and something that hunted life itself. The silence had no body. It had no ships. It erased thought, history, self, and it was coming back. The Ascension Protocol was not just power, it was a call. Across the galaxy, old outposts lit up. Lost vaults opened, not just ships' ideas, species languages once thought. Extinct, light, restored, the core flame cracked, broke, then vanished. The weapon collapsed in on itself, erased not by force, but by purpose. Vigilant Storm returned, barely holding together. Silent Hunter appeared beside it, shielding it from falling debris. Celeste's voice, now soft, echoed through every ship. Guardians restored. The silence must never pass again. On Earth, President Moore watched the final transmission. The stars were brighter. Rachel stood at the window of the wounded ship, watching the planets spin slowly below. "It's not over," she said. Ethan nodded. "But now we remember." The Ghost Fleet turned slowly in space, no longer hidden, no longer forgotten, and humanity rose.